Is the business of sport really business as usual? Things like tech and data and digital are fundamentally challenging the way that businesses are run.
What are the things that we need to be investing in the stadium to make sure that live sports continues to be relevant? How do we take into account the fact that the way that fans consume content is changing?
Using a platform to interact with your audience is the number one thing, and I think Grassroots has now obviously like lots of different levels. The whole idea of like setting up meaningful experiences for people across different levels, I would say, is one key thing that makes a brand successful.
It's not that you don't doubt that there's lots of data and analytics behind what football clubs do, but it was really interesting to hear how detailed it is and how kind of deep they dive into the facts and stats to kind of inform their business decisions.
One interesting thing that really stood out was the fact that purpose came up in that conversation, and that purpose actually is changing the conversation around sport.
There is still a little bit of a lag between women's interest in sport versus things like more holistic well-being and lifestyle, when that's a given.
I think there's a bit of education missing in the journey. So you think about when women start playing sport, they're at school, and you carry that on secondary school, and then as soon as you leave, you stop. And where do you go then? University or to work? So those two places play an instrumental part of keeping you active. So it is down to workplaces and that education there of encouraging people to stay active. We all know it's going to make us more productive at work, but it is going to continue mass participation for women in sport in the long run. I totally agree with you about role models, but that's where everyone drops off the scale.
It was a very kind of healthy tension at times between different perspectives, but I think that the way in which everyone engaged with the topics was great.
Diversity, whether that is race, gender, sexuality, is right at the top of our agenda across everything we do, and we would not sign up to a new sponsorship without considering how it helps us in our challenge around diversity.
I think that there needs to be some risk taken in the market, and some of the big brands need to take that risk.
Actually taking a risk for something with a purpose, that is one thing I think in particular moving forward is we should be a lot more encouraged to do so.
They need to see sport as being much more flexible. It's much more interesting than just the topics that get covered, like being a fan or being passionate about certain sport, or the guts and the glory. That stuff is too obvious.
Making sure as a brand you stay in permanent contact and have the one-to-one conversation with people, like in a physical environment, is an amazing, powerful tool.
Whether it's the person who turns up every single week in the stadium and has been supporting them for 40 years since the Highbury days, or whether it's the person who's watching their first match in Indonesia and learning the players' names at 3 a.m, that they all have some way to feel connected to the club, and that we can kind of build on that relationship and kind of respect it.